Welcome to episode 4 of the Data Sentry podcast, where we talk to the people shaping the future of security, privacy, and AI governance. Our today's guest is Dipti Ranade, portfolio leader in GRC, InfoSec, and responsible AI at Quantify. Quantify is an award winning AI digital engineering firm founded in 2013. It partners with tech leaders like Google, AWS, NVIDIA, TensorFlow, and Looker. Recently named a leader in advanced analytics and AI services by IDC and ISG, Quantify delivers measurable impact through transformational, scalable AI solutions. Through personal stories, real world challenges, and grounded strategies, Dipti, a veteran with over 2 decades of GRC experience, shares insights on building a culture of compliance, navigating ISO certification, and leveraging technology and automation. The podcast wraps up with forward looking advice on AI governance and key takeaways for smaller businesses aiming to strengthen their security foundation. Hi Dipti, how are you?
How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Very happy to be here today.
Great. So let's just dive right in.
Sure.
Since security teams and company leaders have so much on their plate right now, if you had to highlight just one pressing security or privacy issue that's keeping teams awake at night, what would it be?
I think in information security and privacy, considering the kind of risks that we see these days, the risk of unknown is very, very large. Never know what will happen when. So, issues related to security incidents, for example, in the organization, which could happen due to people misbehaving or people accidentally or unknowingly doing something, processes failing, or even something in technology which we have no control on going bad. So with the lack of detective or preventive control, it becomes very difficult to understand what can go wrong at what time. So I think the risk of the unknown is the biggest risk, and that's what keeps people awake at night, or CISOs awake.
That's such a relatable point. It's definitely something many organizations are worried about today. And often these worries become real, like you said, when something actually goes wrong. So, Dipti, could you share a story or a turning point in your own journey, maybe a challenge or incident that really changed the way your organization approaches security or compliance?
One particular incident that I remember, and not in my current organization, but in some other organization, we had seen that there was a suspected ransomware, and it was at that time that we realized that the effort that we had taken for almost 2 years, it suddenly felt like it was not enough. It suddenly felt like we had not done anything because there was so much of activity that we had to do, so much of late night, so many people had to get involved. Uh, it was uh, it was at that time that we realized that it's not just about having your controls in place. It's not just about even having enough detective measures in place. It has to be a team that works with you whenever there is a kind of an incident which requires a large scale investigation. Had it been declared as a ransomware, we would have probably had to involve the FBI, for example, because this was the case in the United States. Because again, you have to also look at the local laws. You have to look at what the local law says about reporting cybercrime and so on. So I think that was the biggest turning point where you realize that even a little bit of complacency, a little bit of thinking that we are there, we don't need anything else, we are now secure, is a false sense of security. It really requires a constant monitoring. It requires constant proactive responses. It requires a team that can understand and can take ownership and actually respond in time, be available 24 hours if required for several months together. So I think that was the biggest learning and turning point for me.
That was such a powerful example. Now your organization operates globally and it's quite large, but many of our listeners run smaller businesses. So, from your experience, how is managing security at your scale different as compared to a smaller company who's just starting their compliance journey?
So I think there are a lot of things that an organization needs to keep in mind. The first thing is your risks and your security controls need to be directly proportional to the kind of organization you are. And when we talk about size, it doesn't necessarily have to be about size. It could also be limited, or it could also be and for a smaller organization, but an organization that is doing work which impacts more number of people. We could take an example of a hospital. So, a hospital may have lesser number of staff, but the impact that it has on human life, or the impact that it will have in case there is a data breach or a privacy breach, will be much more than what actually happens in a smaller organization, a traditional, or let's say a manufacturing company. So therefore, I think just just talking about size of an organization is not necessarily the right parameter. There are other areas like business of that organization, the impact it has on human life, the impact it has on data privacy. So I think these are some things that an organization needs to keep in mind. And while doing this, like I said, your based on your risks, your security posture, or your uh, the type of infrastructure that you have, or the type of controls that you have, the security measures you have to be proportional to those risks. So in a larger organization, traditionally, because you have more people, more processes, more technology, you would tend to think, and it's not completely wrong, you would tend to think that the impact of information security breach or a data privacy breach would be more. And therefore, in larger organizations, there are different challenges as compared to a smaller organization. So, in a larger organization, you need more tools which are scalable, for example. In a smaller organization, you could probably get away with an Excel sheet or a Word document and so on. Now, when I talk about scalable tools, it is because larger organizations have different risks. So you need to have tools which will not only mitigate multiple risks but also be scalable. Like I said earlier, which means that if your organization grows from 3,000 to 4,000 people or 5,000 people, your tool needs to be able to cater to those requirements. In smaller companies, maybe a simple tool may work. Similarly, the kind of effort that you need in terms of training your people or making people aware. Now, the sheer fact that you have 4,000, 5,000, or even 25,000 people in your company, the probability of people accidentally, breaching a security protocol is much higher there, okay? Because the likelihood is more. Whereas in a smaller company, the likelihood is a little less. The impact could be a little less. Therefore, when larger organizations look at information security, they have to look at it in a different. At the same time, what we have to remember is that the processes that are there in a larger organization should not get implemented in a smaller company. It will just become an overhead. They will not be able to manage it. They will not be able to, run with those processes because it just bogs down all of their processes, right? So effective to find a right size fits all is difficult, but at least you should try and cater to a larger organization with more scalable, with more robust processes, which don't necessarily change as frequently as they may in a smaller organization. If you actually look at any of the international standards, like even ISO 27001 for that matter, ISO 27001 says that you should have processes in alignment to what your existing organization structure is, in line with what your organization vision is. Right. So for a smaller company, it has to be aligned to how small or how large the company plans to stay. So that I think is the big difference between a large organization and implementing it in a smaller company.
So much, Dipti, you explained it so well. And with so many teams involved, IT, HR, engineering, marketing, sales, it's challenging to get everyone on the same page.
Yes.
So, how did you manage to bring all of these different groups together and build a culture where everyone cares about security, where everyone cares about compliance?
That's a very good question, Dharita, because most CISOs and most information security professionals struggle with this quite a bit, where they think that the information security team or InfoSec team or the privacy team, they are responsible for security in the company. But I think it has to be a collaborative effort. Security has to be everybody's business. It cannot be only information security. And I think having a good top management support is very critical in such cases. Uh, so having this collaborative effort, talking to teams, explaining and reaching out to different, uh, HR, IT, and other functions, and explaining to them and involving in the process of either decision making or involving them in the process of understanding what the risks are in the company. What is it that we are going to do? What are the plans? Getting their inputs, getting their feedback. Because at the end of the day, the security team should be looked at as a team that is enabling your business instead of saying that you are hindering our business. So our approach has always been that we try and project ourselves as a function which helps you do a secure business instead of saying that we are here to do something that okay, you can't do something. No, we are not here to tell you what not to do. We are here to tell you how to do things in a secure way. You know? Because without business, security team has no value. No, we don't need to be there if there is no business. So at the end of the day, having a focus on what the business needs, keeping the best interest of the organization in mind, keeping the best interest of the customer in mind, getting all the teams to understand that ultimately our goal is the same, right? Whether it be HR, whether it be IT, whether it be data privacy team, whether it be finance, legal, our goal is to ensure that we help our customers to not have any breaches in their environment. We have a responsibility to quantify, to ensure that quantify does not breach any information security or privacy requirements, and ensure that as an organization, we are a secure organization for customers and for our employees. Because with the Data Protection and Privacy Act of India coming in, we also have to ensure that privacy and security of our own data, our own employees is also protected. And each and every person is an employee. For example, I am an employee of the company. I want my data to be protected. For that, I need to have information security controls in place. Similarly, people in HR also employees of the company. So when you start explaining things and when people start relating to these things, then they start getting involved. They say, yes, okay, if you want to have something, some new tool implemented or some new process implemented, I understand this because I am also going to get impacted by this, right? So when you start explaining these things and start explaining to people that we are there to help you, we are part of you, we are all in this together, and that it is everybody's business, I think people will understand and people do tend to work together. And we have seen that in our organization where I'm working currently, that it has been a fantastic collaborative.
Absolutely fantastic, Dipti. I mean, you've lived it and you've seen it all working. So that makes a lot of sense. But we know that things don't always go as smoothly as you expect, right? There are usually some unexpected bumps along the way. So, can you recall a specific moment during your ISO journey where things got difficult and how did you handle it and keep everyone motivated?
During our ISO journey, the biggest impact that happened on information security was the fact that everybody went into hybrid or went into a mode where from a completely office setup, people started working from home. I think COVID was a very, it was an eye opener for most information security professionals, where overnight from an on-prem kind of an environment where everybody was working from office systems and that is your infrastructure was in office, everything had to either move to the cloud, people were going back home, you had different challenges at that time. So I think COVID was one place where a lot of the information security controls which we had always thought of had to be actually they had to be implemented or they had to be enforced. I think classic example of that, and in ISO 27001, one of the important controls is the business continuity planning process. And the business continuity process itself had to be kicked off. I think not we had thought of how business continuity has to. We had done uh, we had done drills where we had epidemic scenarios. We had done everything that was right. But when the COVID happened, we realized that we had not really thought of all the scenarios. So we had to overnight set up a war room. We had to get into calls. We had to explain to people. We had to have new controls on our laptops. All of these were not recorded in our ISO 27001 journals at all, right? Because we had not estimated the scale. So similarly, there were a lot of other plans which had to be which had to be changed. We actually had an ISO 27000 implementation for a client which was going on. So since we had implemented ISO 27000 in our organization and the client had seen it, they had requested us to do an implementation for them as well. This particular customer was not in India, was supposed to be in the United States. Project was supposed to be for 6 months with people traveling to the US. Now, suddenly overnight, when COVID hit, the entire ISO 27000 implementation, which was supposed to happen for 6 months, had to be, we had to change the project plan, and it ended up taking 2 years. Right? And you have to remember that while doing all this, the customer was also working remotely. So they were not in the office to actually implement the controls. So therefore, in these, not just in the ISO journey, but the sheer information security implementation journey, COVID, I think, was a big eye opener. Information security teams also have changed the way they work. They have had new challenges. They have had new controls. They have had new risks. They have done a lot of other things in terms of what was required as per the traditional ISO setup, and they've had to implement and improve the processes that they had. So I think COVID was one of the biggest challenges for the information security journey across the world, not just for us. I think it impacted everybody, and therefore the controls, the ISO journey, the ISO requirements, everything changed with it. And I think ISO 27001 2022 version, it has implemented a lot of those requirements. So remote working or environmental impact, for example. So all of these things have now gotten incorporated anyways in or climate change, for example. So I think the standards are evolving and information security professionals are evolving along.
Absolutely. So everything that you just mentioned resonates with a lot of people. I'm sure people who are watching this podcast could also relate to what you just mentioned. So thank you for sharing it so openly and explaining it so well to us. So it's always interesting to see how compliance can be more than just ticking boxes. So it can actually help business grow. So speaking of compliance, I feel there are a lot of myths around it. So is there a particular misconception that you've noticed about security and compliance in large companies that small businesses should be aware of?
Again, I wouldn't say talk about the size of the company, large or small. But irrespective of the nature of the company, I think the fact that companies think that we don't need security itself is a move. You know, because this, like I said earlier, despite the fact that you have information security processes and controls and risk mitigations in place, you are never 100% secure. So I think the biggest myth is the fact that companies, and especially smaller companies, think that I don't need security. I don't have any data. I don't have anything in my organization which requires to be secure. And any amount of data is at risk these days. So I think this myth needs to be busted that you don't need security. You need security. The scale at which you need security might be a little less, but security is a must. In this day and age, you cannot live without security. And like I said earlier, with the Data Privacy Act of India coming in, the DPDPA, irrespective of whether you have one employee or you have, 10,000 or 100,000 employees in the company, maintaining data privacy of that particular employee becomes a mandate. And therefore, you need information security because the security measures help you protect that data, that employee data, right? So I think organizations need to take information security very, very seriously. They need to look at and assess uh, their what is it that they need, how much they need, what all do they need to protect, and then work accordingly.
Thanks for clarifying that, Dipti. And another thing our audience is curious to know about is how to prepare for the future. So, what's that one emerging threat or trend that you think smaller businesses need to pay attention to in the next year or two?
I think, I think there is a lot of chatter on this, that there is a lot of AI related risks. The kind of risk, I mean, we can't even anticipate. For example, a deep fake. Simple thing like a deep fake incident can bring the entire organization, or even not just necessarily the entire organization, but can have a large financial impact on it, right? Because let's say if there is an incident which asks somebody from finance team to transfer some money, and small and multiple such incidents, you will end up losing a lot of money, or reputation losses also. Business loss could be there, because if let's say, like, if you're a smaller company but you are a listed company, then you have a different impact altogether. Your stock prices might come down because things like this get reported in the newspapers and other places. So I think organizations need to understand that while there are many threats, they need to invest in some good threat intel tools, which keeps monitoring and keeps telling them what are the probable threats that exist at that point in time. Right? Not everything will be a threat to that particular company. They can look at that threat intel. They can go through it. There are free subscriptions available. They can go through it and see uh, what is it that they need, what is applicable to them, what is it that they need to implement, what kind of controls. Now, smaller organizations always have a challenge of retaining people, of getting good security, because one, most security people will want to work in larger, well-known companies. They are a little, they are considered to be a little more expensive than the regular employees, and therefore smaller companies may have that as a challenge. But then there are companies like Data Sentry, which they can outsource that activity to. They can uh, bring in some good consultants who can help them understand what it is, so they don't have the overheads of keeping an employee and managing the benefits and so on. So there are other ways that smaller organizations can look at how these issues related and how these threats can be taken care of.
Absolutely. So, that's definitely something businesses should be mindful of. So, before we wrap up, I'd love to touch on AI and automation because I know that's a topic close to your heart. So, with growing attention on things like AI biases, data ethics, and transparency, how is your organization tackling these unique challenges, especially as standards around AIMS like 42001 and various other global AI regulations that continue to develop?
So we are an AIML company where this is kind of in our DNA now. So there are a lot of good responsible AI practices that have been implemented, which ensure that any products that Quantify sells out in the market, these responsible AI principles have been implemented within these. We have created internal tools. We have borrowed some frameworks and tools of the internet, which are open source kind of applications, and we use them whenever there are any requirements pertaining to implementing these responsible AI principles, especially for high risk or medium risk kind of projects. I think a lot of international focus is also there. Like, you would be aware, there's the EU AI Act. So in such cases, we have done an EU AI Act gap assessment to understand where our products and where our projects fall in, because they have slightly different ways of categorizing their risks. Like, they have a prohibited category, they have other categories which are there. So therefore, ensuring that we understand the product or the project itself, understanding what the risks are pertaining to responsible AI principles, uh, implementing the mitigation strategies for mitigating the risks in whichever in whichever category they are in. For example, if it is related to bias, putting in the necessary mitigation controls. If it is related to transparency or fairness, having mitigation controls around it. So we've created our own internal frameworks. We ensure that these are deployed, institutionalized across the organization, and we have a full-fledged R&D team which actually takes care of a lot of these responsible AI and other practices within the organization. That those are some of the measures that we have taken. And of course, training, irrespective of whether you talk about AI or automation or you talk about information security or privacy, user awareness and training is key. Because ultimately, they are the largest consumers of everything that's happening and largest implementers also. So as long as they are aware, they understand what the risks are, they understand what is required to be done as a part of the organizational culture. I think we are in good hands.
That's really insightful, Dipti. Thank you so much for sharing this. For our listeners, especially the founders and leaders from the smaller organization who dream of growing bigger, what's your one piece of advice on how to build a strong foundation for security and compliance from the start?
That's a very very important question, and a lot of organizations, especially startups, because now small companies are usually startups, they pride themselves on having an open culture. They say that we have no restrictions, we have an open door policy. We allow our employees to bring in their own laptops and use them. Uh, so I think when organizations are starting out, or leaders that are uh, getting into new businesses, they need to start nurturing security at the beginning itself. I'm not saying that you need to have restrictive control, but you need to have controls which protect your organization when you are small. And those controls need to be enhanced. You need to start building on those as you grow as a company. So some things, if you implement right from the beginning, people will adopt it. But if you start asking people to do something after they are used to the freedom that they've had earlier, it becomes very difficult to implement. So you also have to keep in mind the generation that is currently working in your organization, or the age group that is working. Because if you don't start young, then there is a problem. So therefore, the earlier you start, the better it is, and it cannot be 100% restrictive. It has to be something that enables your business, at the same time secures your organization, and at the same time gives you the comfort that yes, I am protected at least to the extent that I would like to be. So I think leaders need to remember that the security as a culture has to be built in. It has to grow as the organization grows. And you also need to set examples. For example, if there is somebody who starts saying that, no, I will not follow the rule that you have, or intentionally or even accidentally breaches, because you never know whether it's actually accidental or not, right? We always give people the benefit of the doubt, but then there will be a time when you have to take some strict disciplinary. And if that is required to be taken at the beginning itself, then so be it. I know it's a little hard. It's not really the best way, but I think sometimes setting these examples becomes very important. Leaders have to set the precedent by example. For example, I'll give you a simple example for this. It could be as simple as wearing your ID. While we tell people wear your ID, display your ID card so that you know who's an employee, who's not an employee, who's a visitor, who's a facility staff. If the leader themselves don't wear it, they don't set an example. Others think, why do we need it? Because the security guard knows me, I've been coming every day. Or they will say that, okay, the facial recognition system has recognized me and has let me in, which means I am a valid employee. Yes, you are. Nobody's saying you're not. But if you wear a card or wear an ID, which may be an organizational policy, you are just, aligning to the rules. You are part of the entire ecosystem, right? So leaders can start by doing simple things like this, right? Going through the training, for example, if there is an information security training. I'm giving very simple examples which people can relate to. So why shouldn't a leader not go through an information security training? He or she is as much part of the organization as the rest of the organization. So when the leaders themselves say, yes, I have done the information security training, you also please do this. They are leading by example. And that I think in as a startup or as a new company that's starting out, it's very important that you start leading by example.
Fantastic advice. And definitely something that our listeners can take away and implement right away. So thanks again for sharing your experience, Dipti. And it has been such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor, and all the best to Data Sentry for its future.
Thank you so much, Dipti.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Whether you are just starting your GRC journey or looking to sharpen your strategies, at Data Sentry, we are all about empowering businesses to navigate the complexities of data security and compliance with confidence.